All right. Good morning. Good morning. It is 6:32. It is July 30th. I hope everyone's feeling well. Post-Fed. Yes, the world is still here post-Fed. A lot of people are trying to debate what went on yesterday. Same Fed every time. Every day, I think a lot of us active traders are like, Fed days are hard. It's so easy to lose. It's so erratic. And yesterday was the same. And then typically the day after the Fed, you get a retracement, back after the, intense move that is relentless. But still, sometimes we fall for it. But anyway, with that being said, it's a new day. It's Thursday. Futures are up like 35 handles. Microsoft helped, Samsung helped, and we'll see what today brings. My name is Scott Redler. I'm the Chief Strategic Officer of T3Live.com and the founder of Red Dog Mindset. Feeling good whenever you have a tricky day. It's always good to do a little fitness. It's always good to get outside. It's always good to spend time with your dog or your family, and then come in the next day and make the right decision at the right time. So with that being said, you look here yesterday, you did get a pretty hard break, of this 735 area. And some people are like, I'm going out short the world. I'm like, well, just a little caveat. Again, the day after the Fed day sometimes is the exact opposite. So if you got ran over a little long here, the last thing you want to do is go out short, and then you come in and then the spies are up 350 in your grill and you're like, shh, I just lost a little bit long and now I'm losing a little bit short. And then all of a sudden you're out of rhythm and you're hating the world. We don't want to hate the world. The world's, you only live once, or depending on what religion, maybe multiple times, but got to enjoy, and every day above ground is a good day. So anyway, the question is, will price get rejected around 735? It's at 733. Yesterday's low is 729. So this will be a spot that if you went out short and you need to, add to some or whatnot, or you went out long and you were buying in the hole because things were down after hours, this 735 will be a battle, in my humble opinion. You look at the Qs are weaker. The Qs have been working lower. The Qs broke their inside wedge a while ago, and it's been below the 8-day since. Hit 661 yesterday. Here's 667. So with that being said, that might be a spot, that's going to cause a problem. It's actually a little bit above that now. So it's already, taken back a third, which is more than a feeble bounce. So I guess, the battle might be a little bit closer to here, which might take a day or two. The oscillator went out a minus 44, which is oversold. So that's why, again, people are like, I'm going out short. I'm like, well, it might take a day or two to work off the oversold nature of the market before, if we're going to go lower, we go lower. So anyway, today it's a little bit above here. 679 is a spot which has some room. Semis have been really, really weak. Wow, look at that. Some people are like, oh my God, how could this happen? I'm like, well, how could it happen? These 2 days right here is how it happened. You had a really strong trend. Semis could do no wrong. I remember on this day, it was July 1st, they trapped all the bulls. And then the next day they tried to open them up, and then it took out the low. And right here is when you had to say, hey, this trend in the semis are over. This is now the time to be out of the way and just test levels and be prudent. And now look at it, down to 91.50. Wow. I actually sold some puts yesterday, a lot of them. And, so I was a little bit worried. But I figured I could sell the 85s, and own the Soxel at 80 after a move from 302 for a trade. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. Let me say good morning to some guys. What's up, Blair? Good morning. Good morning, Alpha Beta. Good morning, Sal's. Good morning, Sam. What up, Jonathan? What up, Get It Done? Some of you guys tuned into the Ask Me Anything webinar, which I do for Red Dog Mindset last night. Answered a lot of questions about the morning routine, about what I do every day for my rinse and repeat in order to feel good, get the day started on the right foot. So this way I can execute with confidence and keep doing the work every day. I do start off with a nice big glass of water, and then I'm in I look at the news, and then I get in the sauna. I do a 20-minute workout with a bunch of people who want to do it with me. It's streamed, and then the ice barrel, and then I come here, and then we go over the X's and O's. But anyway, good morning, 26. Some of you guys took Microsoft. Congratulations. Microsoft was worth a try. The 410s are paying. If you took a 410 by 420 call spread, you're doing pretty well. 422 is right here. This is the 200-day. Microsoft right now is doing what? Microsoft, I think, is a little bit above it. Microsoft's at 425. Wow. All right. So for every earnings play that didn't work, Microsoft worked. You could have bought the 410s by 420s, risk 2 to make 8. There you go. Now I guess we'll see how much of today's gap holds in Microsoft. Meta did not work. It's a little lesson. Meta is like a lesson in how not to lose your cool, how not to roll the dice, how not to throw your discipline out the window. I'll admit it. I lost money in Meta, but I lost money the right way. If you lose money the right way, it doesn't matter if you lose money. You have to lose money in trading. Let me give you a quick little lesson. Make it simple. Okay, if you guys remember, I did buy calls here. Just say I bought 10. But 10 calls, the 690s, I remember that for $10. I'm like, you know what? We just made a lot of money, with the 630s to 680, into this pullback, just in case it hasn't done anything for a year and a half. I'll buy the 690s. I bought them just say only 10 for $10. I'm risking 10 grand to maybe, do what a Microsoft just did. Instead, it came in a ton. I didn't have to do it so early. It went down to like 3. People like, Red Dog, should we buy more? I'm like, I don't like the market. Nothing's really working. I'm not buying more here. And then somebody's like, well, I'm taking the shares into the earnings. It's Meta. It's going to be great. I'm like, well, you don't take shares into earnings as a trader. It's July 29th. That's how you blow up your account. If you lose in the options for earnings play, risk is premium paid, but I don't care. I'm taking 500 shares. Well, Meta is down 50 points. So, 10 contracts controls 1,000 shares. So if you're like, I think Meta is going to be great, my kids are on Instagram everywhere, blah, 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 and you bought 1,000 shares at around 6:30 when I bought, 10 calls, you're down 100 points. You just lost $100,000, rolling the dice for earnings into an earnings play as a trader. As an investor, if you haven't had Meta for 10 years, it's different. But if you're looking to get paid for July for a living, you take options. So I lost 10 grand, and someone who tried to make whatever lost 100. I'd rather lose the 10 than lose the 100. Or, coming into I'm going to just buy it into earnings and come back tomorrow. Another double down. We don't double down. You get your clock clean, and that's how you get put out of business. My job is to make sure the alpha team stays in business. My job is to put high probability trades on the table where risk is, where what your defined situation is. My job is to frame my trade. Some people come to me with ideas like, how would you play this responsibly, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, so Meta is a lesson learned. I lost money there, but I'll lose money like that anytime I want. That's fine. It happens. Is Jay Romero still bullish on SanDisk? Listen, I love when people try and point fingers and make fun of somebody for, a good call or a bad call. I remember when JR, I saw his email go out when SanDisk was at 761, he said SanDisk is going to 1500. SanDisk went to 1600. That was a great call. Leave the calls for people on TV. Listen, I've been on TV 1,000 times. For those who try and navigate frame trades, make money, stack them, get a paycheck, a call is just a call. But JR had a really good call. At 1,600, I don't know what he said. Chances are, if he had a good call, which he did, and played the trend and made a ton of money, right here is when you could have got out of the way with SanDisk. SanDisk broke trend right here, 2002, after a move from 761. A lot of people made a ton of money in that play, and then a ton of money to the short side. I know a friend who started shorting SanDisk at 1,600 because he's like, this is ridiculous. And he did it before the stock was ready to be a short, got stopped out, lost a lot of money short, and wasn't here for that. So it's your job to use your system and your process to figure out when is the right time to be long, when is the right time to be short. And that is why we talk about the 8 and 21 day. Look how Sandisk was above the 8 and 21 day this entire time. And then finally, right here, it rolled over, and this was your out. And then you could have, even if you missed that out, you could have got out still at 1700 before move all the way to the 200 day. I always say as a trader, if you get out of the way when the stock breaks the 8 and 21 day, you don't have to hold your nose and go underwater down to the 200 day. You could actually test the 50 day, test the 100 day, test maybe the 200 day. Right? Would you rather do that, or would you rather close your eyes and hope and pray and wish? Hope, praying, and wishing does not make you money for 30 years in trading. It might make you money once or twice, give you a false sense of security, and then that's that. You got into Tesla yesterday at the close. All right, Tesla gave you no really clue to be in it at the close, so I don't know what you're bragging about. Maybe it's up a little bit with the futures. Okay, so it's up $4. That's not the right thing to do. The day before, maybe the day before, gave you a little red dog reversal. Looked like it hit a bottom, but yesterday closed on the dead lows. No reason to really be in that. So don't do that all the time. You made money today doing that. That's fine, but more time and over, that's gonna continue to the downside. Good juice selling, but premiums in this market right now. That's true. That's why. So M70 is saying there's good juice selling premium in the market. That's why yesterday I wasn't sure where it was. I didn't buy the Soxel. I sold the $85 put, saying, hey, down 4 days in a row, even though it that broken, the RSI was so low. I'm like, I'll sell the 85 puts for $4. That gives me the Soxel at 80. So, it's a little bit helpful. Anyway, there's the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. I call things the good book. I've been doing this for 30 years, so I've collected strategies and things that I do that over time keep me in the game, making me money and making my team money and making my community money. I use day count rules. Day count rules where, Conrad, write this down. This is what I'm going to post in a little bit later so everyone could print them out. Day count rules, okay, my tier system, my sell rules, and those are 3 different infographics that I have that will help you and help you develop your system and process, besides moving average rules, besides chart patterns, besides honoring your stops, besides 1,000 other things. But those are good to follow. They'll keep you in the business. But with that said, listen, at 6:45, Apple did a little bit of a red dog reversal top and could pull back to the 8 day. The 8 day is right here. So if you sold yesterday in Apple's a little bit lower. Feels like when the market bounces, Apple doesn't want to. It does feel like SpaceX is getting better. SpaceX is trying to hammer out a low. I know that it does have its earnings August 4th and the lockup August 6th, so be careful. It stopped going down at least. It gave you a red dog reversal buy. If you're long versus 107, yesterday was a little tricky into the close, but it's still hanging in there. If this wants to actually, I haven't been able to buy it higher once, but I've been able to buy it in the whole versal level. Maybe it clears this 8 day and gives you a better trade, but just be careful of doing that. Zeta, no, the oscillator -4, where can you have to tune into the red dog to get the oscillator. Or you can look at the McClellan oscillator, which is kind of similar to my oscillator. So we'll see if SpaceX can continue to go sideways. Satellite names have been killed. Data center names have been killed. There's been a lot of damage out there. So again, the way you stay in the game is by not breaking your rules, closing your eyes, hoping and praying. It's by using your system, monitoring your stops. And paper cuts do happen. They do. Paper cuts happen. They add up, and it doesn't feel good. But at least once the rhythm of the market changes and things get back, it's very easy to get going. And I know April and May, we all made a ton of money. And we'll make a ton of money again. But for now, it's safe and sane. Usually you make your money 3 times out of the year. And by the way, on Monday, there will be no 6:30 Club. On Monday, I'm going to be with Wolf Financial in the city at their first live conference. There's like 12 of us that are presenting. You should come. I think there's a few tickets left. I'm going to post the link. I'll repost Wolf. And I will be speaking, and I'll be getting to see at least 200 attendees, and it should be a great event on Monday. For the weekend, another event. A lot of events happen over the summer. So enjoy the summer. Every day above ground is a good day. If you feel like you're getting a little spun around, take a deep breath, and just make sure you don't go on tilt and lose more than you have to, because then you're in a hole and you have to make it back when things get a little bit more conducive. Someone asked me, look at Intel. Yeah, Intel. Wow. Intel closed on the lows, below all the moving averages. Intel the same way. Right here, July 1st and 2nd was your time that the semi said they are done, and now it's just working its way down. I got it, gave you no signal yesterday. I actually traded it once and made a little bit of money, and then I lost. You want a link? Okay, I'll post a link to the what's it called, the conference on Monday on my public Twitter in a little bit. Hey, what's up, Jack? Jack tuned in yesterday to Ask Me Anything, which was a webinar that I'm going to do once a month for the Red Dog Mindset subscribers. If you feel like you need to get your mind right, if you feel like you want to win the morning to win the day and do a lot of things to put yourself in a position to make better decisions when things are moving right after the market, you should subscribe above to the Red Dog Mindset. If you like the 630 Club and you feel like you might not want to lose it one day, which could happen in the fall, you should subscribe and then get a lot of little things. It's a formula, guys. You can't just know your X's and O's. You can't just know what you're looking at. You have to have your mind right to execute and deal with the day in and the day out. So this way you can do this for the long term. Someone asked me about Dell. Yeah, Dell's hanging by a thread here. I would say Dell's got to hold this 357, 358. Otherwise, it can continue lower. But ultimately, Dell's been one of the strongest names. So hopefully it continues to hold this gap. If you're in Dell because it's held this gap and it breaks it, then the trade changes. Everyone's like, Red Dog, where do you put your stop when you're in a trade? I put it where my trade changes, meaning the reason I'm in a trade all of a sudden gets invalidated, I get out, not because of the amount of money, not because of if my dog barked the wrong way. It's because if I'm in this an area, you get out. If you were in the 8th day, if you thought it was going to be a bull flag to break out above 454, well, that changed right here. If you're in it from there, it never violated that stop. So P.S. Someone said, Red Dog, you were right on the nose with Netflix. You said it would fill that gap. All right, big deal. At least risk was premium paid. You had your gap down post earnings. You could have been long versus 65 and it never stopped you out. Broken bounce. You could play broken bounces also. You could do a little bit of everything in this market depending on what you're looking for, but you have to know what you're looking for and make sure to follow your process. All right, guys. At this point, again, SPYs, to me, 735 will be a little bit of the battleground. Does it get rejected here or not? I would not be adding to longs into 735. If you covered your short into the close, maybe you're looking to reshort. If you got long into the close, which was not easy to do, make sure you're trimming some into that spot and continue to move your feet, my doggies. I appreciate you for tuning in. It's Thursday. Let's create a great day. And I really appreciate the community out there. Use your resources. A lot of good people out there that try and help the greater good, that can help teach you and keep you moving those feet. It's about progress, which makes you happy, versus perfection. There's no perfection out there. Losses happen. The game continues, but make sure you're on the right side of that fine line. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Purpose, find its reason in every season. Forever, yeah.